understand that they're here inside of our borders. They're here in our country. They're here. They're in your Oval Office. They're in your White House. They're in every hall of Congress. They're in every hall of every department. This application of their doctrine called unrestricted warfare is a war with no rules, without rules. That's what it is. They follow it to a T. And it's not just physical with what you do on the battlefield. It's everything. It's particularly economic. Economic warfare they are masters at it. And that's why they are where they are right now. That's why they dominate so much. I first want to thank my Korean colleagues here. Okay, General. A big round of applause. General Shin, thank you so much. Really, really just outstanding comments and scary, like Charlie's presentation this morning, my brother Charlie's presentation, General Flynn was stark. If I wrote some notes here to kind of just close it out today, a couple of little bits of pieces of information so people have some things accurate, okay? The war in Ukraine did not start in 2022. Okay, did not start after Joe Biden, became the fake president. It started actually in February of 2014. So that's when the war started. So that war has been going on for over 10 years. 10 years. That length of a war, because, all the discussions that we had today all include this, I call it an axis of resistance, okay, that we are facing. All the guys that have served in the military that you heard up here today, all of us, none of us want war, right? None of us, not what's, it's not like we're not out there going, let's go to war. Bullshit, right? But I want people to understand the accuracy of history, okay? So, because I can tell you, it was 2 days after the Sochi Olympics ended, okay, in February of 2014, and they moved pretty quickly. The Russians moved pretty quickly. Now it's been 10 years, okay? So 10 years of anything, 10 years of war will wear you out. As my brother Charlie talked about this morning, or the beginning of this thing, they've been having to pull a lot of logistics out of their Far East military district. Okay? On a battlefield, there is something called, we do war gaming. It's action, reaction, counteraction. So on a battlefield, tactically, action, reaction, counteraction, right? Strategically, the same thing happens. And so when I watch China and Russia and North Korea, which are sub-partners, or Iran, which is a sub-player, Venezuela, which is a sub-player, Cuba, which hasn't been mentioned, but just now is a sub-player. But this is part of this axis that we are facing, okay? So when President Trump or any president goes to sit down with, between the United States and Russia, it's not, especially today, it's not just to talk about finishing or figuring out a way out of this war, this losing war in Eastern Europe. It's also to negotiate what, from a U.S. very selfish, self-interested way, what do I want Russia to be doing about Cuba? Or about Venezuela, because I want to tell Putin to knock it off. I want to tell China.
If you've been watching the markets, you already know gold and silver are exploding, and it's not an accident. When inflation rises, when the dollar weakens, when the world becomes unpredictable, smart people move toward assets that have stood the test of thousands of years. And right now, more Americans than ever are protecting their retirement savings with physical gold and silver. Gold has surged. Silver is climbing fast. And experts believe we may just be at the beginning of the next major run. The question isn't, should I do something? The real question is, can I afford to wait? Because every week, people who waited are now wishing they'd acted sooner. If you want to understand how to protect the wealth you've already built and how to position yourself before the next big move, go to laralovesgold.com or call 800-888-0807. That's 800-888-0807. When you reach out, notice how confident you'll feel, knowing you're finally taking control of your financial future instead of letting the headlines control you. Go to laralovesgold.com or call 800-888-0807 right now. Your future self will thank you for the decision you make today.
China owns or has a vested interest in 80% of the ports globally. 80. Okay? The major ports. In fact, they're building many of them. 80% own or they have a major interest in the ports globally. Okay? So when any president of the United States, okay, and I'll just use Trump because he's there now, but Trump's a good one because he's a good example of it. He'll get on that phone and he'll say, I just had a great call with Xi, right? Just had a great call with the President Xi. And he'll tell the world, he'll post it at 3 o'clock in the morning on True Social, and he'll go out on X, and he'll say, I had a great call, we're going to have a great deal, we have a great friendship, we're going to have a great partnership. And he tells all of his members of his team, and he tells the world that because that's kind of how we operate, right? We're trying to be very transparent. And he thinks that he had a really good call, and Xi said everything that Trump needed him to say. When Xi hangs up, he tells his guys, he tells his CCP buddies, we are going to continue to screw America to the ground. Okay? That's exactly right. He turns to his guys and he says, we're not going to do any of that. In fact, we're either going to delay, it's a flat out lie. I wrote a paper a while back called basically Flynn's Rules of Diplomacy. Rule number 1, you can go look it up. It's a really good one too. But rule number 1 is the U.S. should not lie in diplomacy. So where's my diplomat? Right here, right? 47 years. Right? You don't want to go into a diplomatic discussion and be told that you are going to go lie to your counterpart, right? And especially, coming from the country that you came from. You would not do that, right? Democracies are not supposed to do that. Other countries, this axis of resistance, they will walk into a conversation and they will lie to you. They'll lie right to your face. They'll lie right to your face. That's the war that we are in. And people need to understand it. When we talk about missiles and all this stuff, that's 4th generation warfare. Okay, sticks and stones, 1st generation warfare. We're in another era of warfare. Completely different era of warfare. It doesn't mean that the hypersonic missiles and all this physical stuff can't happen. It certainly can, and it does happen in different parts of the world right now. But we are in a time where, where there is democracy, freedom generally reigns. Where there's democracy, freedom reigns. And we talked about it and touched on it in here today. When you think about the countries, China ought to be on their knees thanking the United States of America that imperialism did not reign during World War II. Otherwise, imperialism under the Japanese system back then would be all the way over, damn near to modern day Iran. Okay? Because Pakistan didn't exist prior to World War II. Okay? It was created after. The Burma Road, right? There's so much history that we can talk all the details of some event, but there's a geostrategic and geopolitical history that we have to understand that connects us all. I would love to say we're going to have, let's let peace break out. right? Let's let peace break out. That's what I want. I mean, that's what I would love to see. But that's not human nature. It's not human nature. War is the norm. Peace is the aberration in human nature. Our country, the United States of America, well, I mean, Korea has been at war. So I was just going to say our country's been at war for the last 25 years, actually since I was a kid. If I tie Vietnam in, maybe there was a little break after the Korean War. I mean, Korea's been at war for 75 years. Is that about how long it is right now? Right? So we have to be like seriously realistic. And, you know, it's not about being a neocon, because the neocons I don't like. I don't like these people that are like, yeah, yes, we got to continue to go to war. Because there is a machinery that benefits from that, right? Like I'm very public about this if you follow me real closely. I mean, the military-industrial complex, right, that Eisenhower warned about, right? There's a military-industrial complex over in Europe as well. There's a military-industrial complex, you know, in the Republic of Korea. And part of it, part of that reason why it exists is because there's an adversary who will lie to you. And I was fascinated by the generals. For those that paid attention, it was very important. Because I think what the general talked about of the North Korean dynasty was fascinating. I'd never heard it told like that, ever. And I've been, you know, looking at this problem for a long time. I just never thought about it like that. I know that I've had conversations where we've used the word dynasty, but we never thought about it in the terms that the general raised today. Because once the dynasty is dead, where does it go? What happens? Right? What happens? Could something happen, you know, right, where Kim Jong-un suddenly dies of a heart attack because that's the lineage of his grandfather, his father. You know, and the guy's overweight, he smokes too much and he drinks too much, right? I mean, God, send him to see Bobby Kennedy, right? But God help us. But you see it, but it's true. It's very true. So anyway, we have to be really realistic about what it is that, you know, for this audience. And this audience is really kind of the essence is this partnership because of our friendship, you know, between the Republic of Korea and the United States, you know, friends that we have had over many, many years, who have served and sacrificed together, right? And it's also about bringing, you know, different foundations and people together, because the United States of America, we can't win things alone. And that, like I say, very strategically, one man down the street here can't do it alone. I don't care who's in that White House. Now I do, because I don't want some nut job pro-communist lefty. You know, I don't. I mean, I definitely don't. And thank God we have what we have. Okay. But moving forward, because time goes by very quickly. I mean, if it took 10 years, you know, God, I mean, more than that, actually, probably. I mean, the F-35 program, all these different programs. The one thing in warfare that you have to understand is you have to understand geography or topography or terrain. You must. And how, you know, where there are weaknesses, where there are strengths, where there are channels, where there are lines of communication. So the big contest, the big global contest that's going on right now, okay, so no matter what we do on the Korean Peninsula, because I'm a big one for unification, I'd love to see that happen, and I'd love to see it in my lifetime, right? But the big contest is globalism versus essentially the protection of national sovereignty, okay? I mean, and really, what is the word? It is, what's the ism? It's nationalism. It's ism, a belief in something. National is a belief in your nation. So if you believe in your nation and you believe that you want to protect your nation, you want to have your own sovereignty, your own economy, your own culture, you want to protect all of that. You know, you want to have your religion, whatever it is, or you want to have a multiple, you know, a sort of a multicultural religious society like the United States has, with all due respect to assimilating to our country. I mean, with all the freedoms that we do allow in this country. But that's the big contest, globalism versus nationalism. That's happening. Okay, and there's a completely new alignment going on in Europe right now. It definitely is going on in Africa, but there's a new alignment going on in Europe. Huge, huge alignment that's shifting. And it's shifting because of all this nonsense about illegal immigration. There is an awakening in the Pacific. Okay, and there's a potential alignment out there. I've never seen as much talk about should we continue to have the Five Eyes. You know, everybody knows what the Five Eyes is in the world of intelligence, right? Right, it's all the sort of the white nations after World War II, right? New Zealand, Canada, UK, us. Right, so the Five Eyes, right? I mean, I've never seen so much talk about eliminating that, or should we even have that anymore? I'm fine with pulling out of NATO. I'm fine with pulling out of NATO. Now, what does that mean? I mean, so you know, it's you can clap for it, but there's a consequence. There's a consequence to it. But I will tell you, NATO has completely lost its way. Completely lost its way. So now what I'm getting into is alliances. Because I think, as we've heard here today about Korea, there's an alliance that's built, you know, based on bloodshed, right? And so that's a different kind of alliance because the word ally and alliance have very specific definition versus a friend, okay? You know, allies, alliances, they kind of come and go, you know. Treaties come and go. I mean, we've lied about so many treaties. But friends actually stick together. And they stick together through thick and thin. And they stick together because of the original reason for becoming a friend. And we have some of those around the world. Some. Not all. And some of those friendships, more than alliances, some of those friendships are starting to disintegrate, not because of the people that we made friends with originally, because their entire systems are changing. Their entire cultures are changing. Whereas like Korea or Japan and some other, Taiwan is another one, the cultures have remained monolithic for the most part. They've maintained they're fighting to maintain their own culture. They're fighting to maintain their way of life. And they're fighting to do it because they want freedom. They want freedom. I mean, I would love to think that China would implode if they attack Taiwan. China can lose our entire population and are willing to do so if it meant staying in power. Not 300, not 2 million soldiers. They can lose our United States population, which is about, let's just say it's 320 million. They can lose the entire population. If it meant staying in power, they'd be willing to do it. They'd be willing to do it. They're that desperate. They're that desperate. Okay, so we have to be honest when we talk about what we have. You know, the thing about George Washington, if you never have, for those Americans that are here, go read George Washington's farewell address, which he wrote. You know, they didn't go up and give an address on TV or something like that, right? He actually wrote it down and he published it in one of the papers at the time. It's a fascinating document, fascinating farewell to a country that wasn't there at the beginning, and then 8 years later it was, right? And he's the reason why we have 2 terms as a president. In his farewell address, written farewell address, it was a warning. It was a warning. You know, after all the stuff that a guy like him had been through at the very beginning, at this fledgling nation, he is warning. And when you read it, it's like he wrote it today. It's like George Washington, 240, whatever, 2 years ago, maybe now, right? It's like he wrote it as though he were alive today. You should read it. You should read it. It's not that long of a read. And it's like, holy crap, you know? Talking about allies, talking about don't get entangled overseas too much, right? Be careful who you do get entangled with. Be careful who you do rely on overseas, and watch your back at home. Not because there was terrorists, because he was worried about the political dynamics. But I'm telling you that the United States of America is going through a very historic period where the enemy is right here. Okay, and we are facing an enemy right here at home. Okay, and who's at the who's fueling it? China, no doubt, 100%. Now, how do they do it? The ways that they do it. And somebody mentioned unrestricted warfare, right? So you might ask Lara, John Mills, I think. Unrestricted warfare is a war conducted without rules. That's the definition of it. Okay? Is war conducted without rules, right? It was written in 1998 by 2 Chinese colonels who I actually met. We don't have a manual. We don't have something that says this is how you defeat unrestricted warfare. Because you have to be in a democracy, you have to have rules. You have to have rules. But that's our strength. That is our strength. And we need to stick the truth in their eye all the time. So if we say something to them, we must do it. Okay? A president cannot, or anybody, but certainly a president of the United States, can't say something and then go, well, we'll see what happens. President's got to say something and do it. And when you have an internal, this is back to the United States again, when you have an internal foe that is stopping or subverting the very orders that you're giving to the country and certainly to the government that's supposed to execute on behalf of a president, that's a problem. It's a problem. We're kind of dealing with that right now. So I know what the size of our military is. I know what the size of our diplomatic corps is. I know where things are around the world. And I know that these things function and operate. And if there's another outbreak somewhere else that's a little bit more than we can handle, we're in a tough spot. We're in a tough spot. I mean, we used to think that, wherever we had a carrier that was like the aircraft carrier now, that was like a big, we got one down in the Gulf of America right now. Wherever our aircraft carriers were, that was where American strength existed, right? That's where we were at. And there was a demonstration of power. I mean, you can send 1,000 drones that cost you $50 a pop and destroy an aircraft carrier.
Thank you once again. I really appreciate General Flynn. Let's give him a big hand.
Mike, one of the biggest things out of this conference was the breadth and depth of China's tentacles and how they have really hooked into countries across the world and the region. What's the headline for you?
Well, one of the things that we talked about is where China is globally. So this wasn't just about the Korean Peninsula and even the region itself, although the focus was the region, but what we really came away from was the global presence that the CCP has, frankly, on every continent. And when you start to talk about their One Belt Road initiative, right, and you look back at the latter part of this century, right, or the last century, and then the last 20 years. I mean, under Obama allowed China into the World Bank and the World Trade Organization. Most people don't realize that. And when they weren't a big economy at that time. At the end of the last century, China wasn't a big economy. Their purchasing price parity, their economy was still fledgling, and they were still trying to figure out. When Xi came on board in 2012, he sort of put it into overdrive, and he really worked on the Obama administration, and they got what they wanted out of that. Once they joined the World Bank, once they joined the World Trade Organization, they have then, been on hyperdrive with their economy. And now they're the number 2 economy in the world, right? And they're second to the United States. So that ability to be able to move that fast in a very short period of time is very telling. And a lot of it is because we've given in to them. So we gave in to them for 8 years of Obama. We gave in to him for the 4 years of the Biden administration, whatever that was. Trump came on board, in his first administration, and he tried to slow things down where he changed up the trade agreements in the Pacific. And now Trump's back in, and he's still changing things up with these various trade agreements and trying to use tariffs as a weapon system. But I'm not sure that people understand the dominance that China has globally. And it's not just the size of their military and the Taiwan Straits and North Korean nuclear weapons. Those are important, and they're strategic touch points, but they're not what matters today with the CCP, with China. China is everywhere. We used to think that, like what's going on in Venezuela right now, that our country is involved in, the United States is involved in. We've never really paid much attention to that. We would think, Cuba, Russia. China is all over South America. Never mind, Venezuela. China. I said earlier today that China, owns or has a major share of like 80% of the giant ports around the world. The United States of America, I think it's around 70% of our trade goes through the Panama Canal. So if you have China working on the different, on the west coast of South America, you have China working in Venezuela, then China can dominate the Panama Canal. And we think about the Taiwan Straits and Korea. We don't think about our own hemisphere sometimes. And I think I do like what Trump is doing in our hemisphere. But we have to think about China as a massive global presence who Xi feels like this century is the Chinese century. And everybody that looks at globalism, all these globalists, right, all these big corporations that love to use Chinese slave labor because it's cheap for them and they're able to make money all over the place, right, all over the world. China China developed fentanyl. China developed the whole COVID madness, right? All these things. We have to quit acting as though China wants anything that's good for us. So when a president, I don't care which president it is, I don't care which Secretary of State that talks to them diplomatically or politically, they will lie through their teeth at us, and we have to stop believing that. We just have to do it.
So what more does Trump need to be doing? If you could give him some advice on major things that he hasn't undertaken yet, what would they be?
He's got to get China out of our hemisphere in the way that they are here now. He really does. I mean, we cannot afford to have China where it's at right now in our hemisphere. Once we've done that, because a subtext to that is understanding the Chinese infiltration into our government, right, into our institutions of power, into our institutions of federal, state, local, into our educational institutions. I mean, the ridiculousness of saying we're going to allow 300,000 a year, 600,000 Chinese students because they're going to learn democracy and they're going to go back home and be better Democrats or something. They're going to send their very best. That's nonsense. It's sheer nonsense. They've been coming here for the better part of 25 years, sending their best and brightest, going home and ripping us off. And that's what they're doing when they send a freshman, to an undergraduate program, or they send a more mature adult to a graduate or a doctoral program, and they end up staying here for 2 years because we're giving them a 2-year visa to stay here. They're ripping us off. And China's been doing it for a long time. And Trump has said, they're ripping us off. He has said they're ripping us off. So stop allowing them to rip us off. Understand that they're here inside of our borders. They're here in our country. They're here. They're in your Oval Office. They're in your White House. They're in every hall of Congress. They're in every hall of every department. They have done such a masterful job. And that doesn't mean that there's a Chinaman around every corner. It's just how they have done it. This application of their doctrine called unrestricted warfare is a war with no rules, without rules. That's what it is. They follow it to a T. And it's not just physical with what you do on the battlefield. It's everything. It's particularly economic. Mm-hmm. Economic warfare they are masters at it. And that's why they are where they are right now. That's why they dominate so much. That's why, as we talked about today's conference about our ability to, we don't really have an ability to develop gunpowder unless we, beg the Chinese to do it. I mean, there's a lot of other minerals that they refine and that we have to get from them. I mean, in some cases, some of these key rare earth elements, we're talking up to 75 to 80% are China, right? So we have to go to them and do Mother May I's to be able to do the things that we need to do here to manufacture the kinds of, military stuff or other products. So
That's pretty terrifying.
It is terrifying.
That's a wake-up call.
yeah, it's a massive, it's a warning. It's a warning. And like I said, I finished this summit here today by telling everybody that we have to stop thinking like the oceans are there to protect us. Those days are gone. Those days actually left probably 30, 40 years ago. And that the days of having an ocean on either side of our shoreline where it's like, well, we don't have to worry about, the enemies because they're over there. Those days are gone. That enemy is right here at home, and they're doing damage to this country. And frankly, the Biden administration and the left is not the Democrat Party that I once belonged to. It is a creeping communism, and they're here. There's many in Congress. We can call it the Democratic Socialist Party of America, whatever you want to call it. But there is a communist element which is much, much larger than most people realize. And it starts here in Washington, D.C., which is where we're at right now, and it goes all the way down to every single goddamn school board in this country. And that's why we've been out for the last 4 years. Hell, I've been out fighting the last 4.5 years, fighting to overturn school boards. Because when we're finding school boards, we're going, wait a second, why are they teaching DEI, right? Why are they teaching all this garbage in these books? That's, again, it's not because they think that that's cool. It's because they want to completely corrupt our children, which is the future. So, and they did a damn good job at it. And we were just kind of going, hey, this politics as usual. We have better policies than the Democrats, Republicans do this. I mean, and they still don't understand it. The political, the majority of politicians in our country today do not understand what I just told you. And that should scare everybody, not our military guys or whatever else. But we have a political class in our country that cares only for themselves. And we have the weakest people that are in leadership positions in Congress. And it's insane. And I don't know why these people because we had a couple of former members of Congress, but also a current member of Congress, super good, great guy, former military guy. I want to see more military become members of Congress because they have a different sense of patriotism and they have a different sense of what is right and what's the right thing to do. You get these people that have been doing nothing but politics their whole life. It's all about them, and they're terrible. I mean, I wish I could sprinkle fairy dust and poof, have them all, get voted out, but I don't know. I mean, it's a trying time. I want to be optimistic. I want to say, hey, get out there and step up and speak up. And I think that's kind of that's my message to Americans is local action, national impact. Get involved. Don't count on one man to do the whole thing. Don't count on Donald Trump to do the whole thing. He's one guy. Christ, we've already seen what they're doing, what his inner circle team is doing to him, keeping him in the dark about a lot of shit. And that's got to stop. But at the end of the day, it's his responsibility to understand that, too. He's got to say, if he finds out about something, he's got to rip somebody's guts out and say, hey, why didn't you tell me this? And if they're like hemming and hawing, get rid of them. I mean, we are not in a place now where politically you keep things from the president. And Mr. President, if they're keeping things from you and you don't know that, then you got a problem, right? If they're keeping things from you and you find out about it, you better do something about it, and you better do something quick. Because the American people and the sentiment of the American people is starting to change. Because one thing about Americans, one thing about our founders that we were taught two things: courage and accountability. Our founders demonstrated courage by their actions, and they all took account for themselves. They all were going to be accountable if they lost to the British. They were ready to be hung. They were ready to be, drawn and quartered. They were ready to be shot. Every one of them, that's what we were taught. So the second aspect of that, one is courage. Check, Mr. Trump.
Yeah, he sure is courage.
You have demonstrated an ungodly amount of courage. The second thing, though, is accountability, right? You're accountable for yourself, and you've been good about it. But the people around you, they have a completely different definition of accountability than the American people do.
Well, apparently. And are you concerned, Mike, that the lack of accountability will be used against Trump to impeach him? Because the midterms don't look good at this point. They just lost another seat that had been Republican for a very long time. And there hasn't been any accountability. So failure to hold people to account can be used against the president because he took an oath to defend and protect this nation from its enemies, both foreign and domestic. And there's a whole bunch of Americans don't feel protected right now.
Yeah, so actually the president's oath also has the word preserve, okay? All of the rest of us who have taken an oath of office is the old, defend and protect the Constitution, right? The president is the only person, not even the vice president. The president's the only one that adds the word preserve, and it really is about preserving the Constitution. And so, Mr. President, I want you to reflect on that word, because we are going to lose everything if we lose our ability to be a democracy, a republic, a constitutional republic, right, and maintain our freedoms, which these people on the left they want to take them. They want to do everything. And frankly, Congress isn't helping. They're not even helping him much. So they just voted, the House just voted against some executive order that he had.
For unions, to get rid of unions for federal workers.
Right. So
with 20 Republicans or something like that voting with the Democrats.
You mentioned about losing a seat. So when you look at the cities across the country, the left has been very smart, and I keep saying the left. This is a communist infiltration into this country. So when you think about what was their plan? Their plan was mid-sized cities, and started in the 90s. Mid-sized cities, not only mayors, but district attorneys, or guys like George Soros would fund it. He still gets away with it. I don't know why. But then you start looking at the big cities. You look at Chicago, Seattle, Los Angeles, Kansas, Pittsburgh, now New York City, now Miami, right? Miami, I think, was 30 years or something. You look at New Orleans, you look at Dallas, Houston, those are in Texas, right? So you look at the big cities in our country, Boston's another one. And you look at all these different cities and you go, who's running these cities? It's a bunch of lefties. It's a bunch of socialists. And you see the rot. I mean, some of these cities used to be beautiful. You could walk around and, not too long ago, a few years back, you could walk around New York City, go to a show, have a nice restaurant, go to a nice restaurant, have a good time. Not anymore, right? And it's like that in damn near every city. The left in the 90s, during the Clinton administration, they had a goal to take over damn near all of the mid-sized cities in the country. Mid-sized cities being about 500,000 plus, because they already started taking over the big cities. And now you look at the country and it's like they've got the mid-sized cities, they've got the big cities, and now they, for the last certainly since Obama came in, they really got into the federal level of government. So now you have the Democrat side. I mean, I think most of them are part of the Socialist Party of America. I mean, it's just incredible. It's incredible. So we have to stop kidding ourselves that this is about big government, little government, low taxes, no tax, whatever, And that's just half it, because the other half is foreign policy. The foreign policy that he's involved in right now. It's a year, Mr. President, that you've been at this, and you listen to people that were trying to drive you and this country toward war. Last thing I'll say, because I got to run to a thing. It's not about what they're doing to President Trump, okay? Because he'll say, I've been through all this. I got it. I've been there, right? It's not about you. It's about what they're doing to this country. So you can say, look at what they did to me. They Russiagate, impeachments, felonies. They're still at it. Yeah, they are. They're still at it. But it's not about you. You just happen to have gotten in the way. It's about what they're doing to this country, which means what they're doing to guys like me and people like yourself. It's what they're doing to the people of this country that just so love freedom. That's what gives me hope, because I'm going to tell you, whatever happens in the Oval Office, whatever happens in Washington, D.C., the American people aren't about to give this country up. And that's, when I do these kinds of events and I see people, I'm like, I get fired up about that, because when you leave a place like this and you go around to the country like I have been able to do, and I meet people, in blue jeans and, and whatever, boots and a hat, I'm like, shit, no, they're not ready to give this country up. And I'm like, good. So get involved and get others involved and get fired up about what we need to do. Thank God we have the rights that we still have. So, anyway.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate that. God bless.